Well, my next guest says Trump's plan looks quite familiar, just like the one Jeb Bush put out weeks ago. Some of the similarities. They both want to lower the top rate on capital gains to 20%. They both want to get rid of the alternative minimum tax, the carried interest loophole, and the estate tax. And the reductions on income and corporate tax rates are also very similar. Joining us right now is Dan Mitchell, Cato Institute Senior Fellow. Dan, it's good to have you on the program.
Well, thank you. What
are your observations on this plan?
It's a good tax plan, assuming he's serious and assuming if he got elected, he pushed it through Congress. But he's dealing with a lot of the big problems we have. We have high tax rates, especially on the business side, that make America less competitive and undermine job creation. And like the Rubio tax plan, like the Rand Paul tax plan, like the Jeb Bush tax plan, we're seeing a lot of really good ideas to lower the burden of taxation. Now we need to hear what are their plans to constrain the growth of government spending to make sure the numbers all add up.
Well, I think that's a really good point. I mean, do you raise enough revenue with all of these tax cuts?
With these tax plans, what you're basically talking about is not cutting revenue to the government. You're talking about reducing how fast the revenue grows.
Right.
So you need to accompany that by plans to constrain how fast government spending grows. But if you can simply have government over the next 10 years grow by 2% a year, which is the rate of inflation, that actually gives you a tremendous amount of room to do major tax reforms and major tax reductions. And frankly, given the competitive global economy, if we don't do these things, if we continue to sort of stumble and bumble our way to becoming more like Greece or Italy, then I really do worry about what that will mean for middle-income Americans as our economy begins to stagnate.
Dagan, you're nodding your head. You don't think this adds up?
No, it didn't get scored. And there's something in this tax plan for everybody to love, but so looking at it, I was like, this has got to add trillions of dollars to our debt unless you have serious offsetting spending cuts.
Yeah.
Dan, I want to ask you, though, this plan is so easy to sell because you take the bottom rate to 0%. Who can't love that? But you're going to have 75 million Americans who do not pay any federal income tax. What does that say about lack of ownership in the country? That means those people will not be funding our military whatsoever.
That is a concern. One of my colleagues, Chris Edwards, just wrote about this yesterday. If you have too many people who view government as being free, maybe they'll demand too much of it. And that is just as much of a problem as you have people just directly benefiting from government programs. So, yeah, we do have to think about how many people we actually want off the tax rolls. But, of course, the ultimate fantasy from a libertarian think tank, wouldn't it be great if all of us were off the tax rolls because we went back to where we were for most of our country's history with no income tax at all? But then you need small government like our founding fathers actually envisioned.
Or a consumption tax, which is what Mike Huckabee wants. He wants a national consumption tax rather than an income tax. But.
Well, you should only do that if you first repeal the 16th Amendment so that the politicians couldn't do a bait and switch and give us both.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point because that may very well be the ultimate goal there. So what do you think will resonate most and will work best? I mean, you've got Rand Paul talking about 14.5% flat tax for everybody. You know, you've got Jeb Bush's plan, which is very similar to this Trump plan, right?
It is. And I think the gold standard, the obvious gold standard, is the Hall-Rabushka flat tax developed by those guys out at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. One of these candidates is moving in that direction. Maybe one of them's going 50% of the way, the other's going 60% of the way. I'm not a politician or a political observer, but I do think that Trump deliberately picked a 25% top rate because it's lower than Jeb's 28, and I think he picked a 15% corporate tax rate because Jeb Bush had 20. Now, Jeb Bush does some things that Trump didn't do. Governor Bush's plan gets rid of the business tax bias caused by depreciation. Trump doesn't deal with that. Bush goes with territorial taxation to make American companies more competitive.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't do that. So there's different pieces, but I think the good news, I mean, for someone who's hated dealing with a terrible tax system and has been trying to work for tax reform for more than 20 years in D.C., it is so exciting to see a lot of candidates actually talking about dealing with some of the major warts in our tax code.
Oh, you mean so you don't think Bernie Sanders' 92% tax rates will work then?
Well, they haven't worked. That kind of approach has not worked very well in Europe, so I'm not confident it'll work here.
I'm sorry, that was half facetious.
Which half?
I'm bad. Dan, thank you. We'll see you soon, sir. Great analysis, as always, from you, Dan Mitchell.